Join us in the latest episode of In a Car with IPR featuring Brian Lott, IPR trustee and Chief Communications Officer of Mubadala Investment Company headquartered in Abu Dhabi. In this episode, we head to Washington, D.C. to talk to Brian about international public relations, the importance of research, and the future of the PR industry.
Hi, and welcome to this episode of In a Car with IPR. Today, we're not in a car. We're on scooters, so motorized vehicles. Today, I'm joined by Brian Lott, the CCO at Mubadala in the UAE. So thanks for coming here, Brian.
It's great to be here, Tina, and I can't wait to say more about IPR. So we're here on the grounds of the Lincoln Memorial, which, as everyone knows, given the millions of visitors who come here, honors our 16th president, Abraham Lincoln, who, although not born in Springfield, Illinois, lived there for a long period of time before he left to come to Washington and serve the country as president. So it's great to be here.
And so, Brian, you're from Springfield.
I'm a son of Springfield. I was born and raised there, and you're steeped in Lincoln lore when you go through school. So you get very familiar with Abraham Lincoln. And I once played his son, Robert, at Lincoln's home in Springfield during a sort of Lincoln pageant. So that's a little bit of my Lincoln history.
Nice. Couldn't get Abraham's part?
No, my grandfather, though, was an Abraham Lincoln impersonator and used to dress up like Lincoln at a number of Republican conventions because he's a good Republican. Lincoln was their spiritual hero. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that about you.
Yes.
I feel like I'm learning a lot.
Inside the Lincoln Memorial, of course, is the second inaugural address by Abraham Lincoln, with malice toward none and charity toward all. So in that spirit of charity,
I feel like you should recite the rest.
I'd like to, but we don't have enough time.
All right, so you grew up in Springfield.
I grew up in Springfield.
You've lived all over.
I've lived all over, but now I'm in Abu Dhabi, but there are great similarities between Washington, D.C., where we are today, and Abu Dhabi. They're both capital cities, and my work here as a press secretary and chief of staff has become, interestingly, very similar to my current job, where I report to the CEO of Mubadala, and to a certain extent, he fulfills a very commercial role, but it's also owned by the government, so it's a bit of a government role as well.
Makes sense. And then you were here in D.C. How long were you in D.C.?
I was in D.C. for 14 years, working on Capitol Hill at a time when I felt like that was truly honorable public service, and left Washington, D.C. to go work for Burson in Germany for a couple of years for a big technology client, and then went back to Silicon Valley before I left in 2009 to go to Abu Dhabi.
So you've lived all over. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Mubadala, because people may not be familiar. Mubadala Investment Company.
Mubadala Investment
Company. Formerly Mubadala Development Company.
So Mubadala is the Arabic word for exchange. It was set up basically to help diversify an economy that traditionally has been reliant on hydrocarbons for its wealth. In their wisdom, the fathers of the country believe that at some point that wealth will become obsolete, and they are preparing for that day now by investing in lots of different sectors, which is what we do as the commercial arm of the Abu Dhabi government.
And you just went through a huge branding, renaming a year ago.
Yes, so for the Mubadala has tripled in size over the last 18 months. We've gone through 2 mergers with 2 other sovereign funds in Abu Dhabi, and we've unveiled a new brand about a year ago that is meant to reflect its energetic nature and its global presence.
So why don't you tell us about your role as the comms team and what you did to facilitate that process?
Most of my team are Emirati, right? So 75% of my team are citizens of the UAE, and their exposure to a big brand launch has been an incredible education for all of us, because you have to think about our new identity, our new brand identity. We changed the name of the company from Mubadala Development to Mubadala Investment, which is an evolution of our mission. And there are people who still don't really understand what our role is as the commercial investment agents of the UAE. So we undertook a road show, which we called Global Exchange. We sent a number of Emiratis around the country to our portfolio companies and partners to tell the Mubadala story. And that has opened people's eyes up to not just who we are, but how we do work.
Nice. Well, why don't we take a walk and then we'll see the sights of DC?
That sounds great, Tina.
So So tell me about how your organization or how your department incorporates research into the day-to-day.
So this is the biggest evolution, I think, for us and for the profession in general in the Middle East, is this not just media relations skills and marketing, but the use of data and use of research to drive a lot of our campaigns. So when we went through our whole rebranding and global outreach, we wanted to get a sense of how well known or well respected the Mubadala brand was. So one of the cool things about IPR is that I can actually share a lot of the case studies and information about IPR and what we do as members with my team. It helps enrich their understanding of research and data. And for them, we just did a big brand survey about 2 weeks ago. Now they have a much better context for why that research is important, because it really justifies and directs a lot of the spending that we do from a communication standpoint.
And I did not pay him to say that.
You did not.
That was just
That's
organic.
just a generous offering
it was
as
very
a trustee.
Organic.
Yes.
Okay, what's the best advice you've ever been given? Besides my advice I give you all the time, what is the best advice you've ever been given?
I think Harold Burson taught me early in my career that the best orientation for being a public relations person is to be what he calls in the know. And that means that you're literate about things that are just current topics and allow you to have a conversation with people at a very senior level, whether they're a chairman of a board or a CEO or a colleague. Or, in my case, as I get older, Gen X or someone much younger who's entering the profession, right? I need to know what's on their mind. I need to know what they're thinking about the world. And it opens doors in ways I never could have imagined. So to me, Harold's advice of being in the know is something I've tried to follow my whole career.
What about the worst advice you've ever received?
So the worst advice I've ever received would be to something that works for many, many people, but didn't work for me. So the worst advice I ever got in regards to my career was to pick one avenue and go very deep and specialize in it. One professional field, for example. Instead, I tended to enjoy and thrive on being a sort of omnivore. And that has served me well my whole career. And it wasn't that it was bad advice in general, it just didn't turn out to be good advice for me.
Nice. Well, why don't we move to our next destination?
Sounds great.
So in this segment, I ripped it off or borrowed from James Lipton inside the Actors Studio.
Nice.
Do you remember this?
Yes, of course.
It's great. So the first question,
Yes.
What is your favorite word?
Elaborate.
Elaborate. That's a good one. Elaborate versus elaborate. You like the adjective version.
Correct.
Nice. I like that. It's good. What's your least favorite word?
Like.
Oh, like. That's a great word.
Like.
Like.
How it's used in a sentence, like, by everyone today. I find that to be an annoying filler word.
I think I do that. So, great. So how do you unwind, relax, recharge?
Yeah, so I am known to travel to various opera houses in the world and to see some of my favorite performances.
What's your favorite opera? Is that a tough question?
No, it's not a tough question. My favorite is La Fanciulla del West, which is a Puccini opera about gold miners in California. And it's melodic and it's unusual, and it borders, as you know, this genre between late 19th century and early 20th century, goes on to inspire composers like Debussy, for example. So that's my favorite.
So what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I would like to be an arts administrator at some point in my life.
So what would that entail? What would you do as an arts administrator?
Well, it's a combination of fundraising, management, and publicizing, something I'm deeply committed to. So that seems great.
So to be like specific arts, or would you do opera?
No, of course, I'd prefer to be the manager of an opera house.
That would be really great.
Yeah.
What would you not like to do as a profession?
I think the thing that I like least in life, in terms of a professional avenue, would be a bus driver. Not because you don't meet a lot of people, which I love that, but I'm just not good at sitting in a large vehicle for extended periods of time.
And the monotony of the route.
Hence the scooter.
The scooter was fun, right?
Yeah, very.
Okay, so if God does exist, you go to heaven, what would you want him to say, or her, and you passed through those pearly gates.
You were kind, you were generous, you did your best to be a good person. You made a lot of mistakes, but you're forgiven.
Nice, that's nice. All right, Brian. So
Yes.
Crystal ball.
Yeah, crystal ball.
Crystal ball. Tell us, where do you see in the industry? Like, if you could predict changes to the industry in the next few years, what do you see?
Yeah.
And then with that, what do you see are some of the challenges that come with it?
So I think the biggest change we're feeling now, which is this convergence of public relations and marketing, right? The old ways of getting your message out through paid advertising is quickly going away and falling into a sort of social media world. So that means that for people like me, we have to be pretty up to speed on how to operate those channels and how to communicate with audiences like that. It's actually a good thing because it forces communicators to be more authentic and real. There's a high level of skepticism about what typical publics see out of companies and agencies, so it forces us to be more disciplined in the content that we create.
So with the content we create and sort of what we see are changes in social and digital, do you think the role of companies, are they going to put more investment into social and take back some of the other traditional channels, or do you see it a balance, or what do you see?
No, I think they're going to put more into social, and I think they're also going to use more research, because if they're being responsible, they ought to be curious about what their publics are thinking about them and the industry that they're operating in, depending on whatever sector that is. So that's, I think that leads to a more authentic conversation, which is great. It's great for institutions like IPR as well.
It is, because we do the research that matters to the profession.
Yes, we do.
And we do see a lot of challenges with the research or lack of use of research, so I think we're still working on that. But we're making great strides.
Congrats. Thanks to your leadership team.
Oh, thank you. Make sure we definitely don't cut that part. Okay, so this wraps up. Oh, anything else I should add before I wrap this up?
I think the only last thing I would add is that it's been a great morning here. It's been a little warm.
It's been great, yeah.
In Washington.
Yeah.
But this is truly one of the great parts of the country where millions of people come to get inspired about their government and their form of government, which is pretty unique. So I encourage people to come to Washington if they haven't recently and check out the monuments.
Because, yeah, Washington, D.C. is a great place and great food, and it's just also great people watching. And then maybe next time we'll come again to the UAE.
Yeah, we'd love to host you in Abu Dhabi, which is
that.
a place of equally rich history. So come visit.
So thanks for joining us today, Brian.
Yeah,
we really
my pleasure,
appreciate
Tina.
your time. So that wraps up our episode of In a Car with IPR. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. And feel free to donate money so we can continue doing these and actually go to Abu Dhabi one day.
Come and visit, please.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode of In a Car with IPR. Want to make a tax-deductible contribution to support this series and fund research in the profession? Please visit us at instituteforpr.org/contribute.